what I valued most, like at that moment and still to this day, like not money, this, that, everything else. It was like that I have created that with her and that I don't have kids. I'm not married, anything like that. I hope to be one day. I hope to have kids, hope to be married. And if I do have that privilege, then my wife will be able to hear from my mother through her words and feel her heart. My kids, well, her grandkids would be able to hear her words and hear her heart.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Business Expansion Tips with Kanika Vasudeva. So, today we have Adam Torres. Now, he is the host of Mission Matters podcast. He has written books. His podcast has over 1 million views in a month. Did you say that, Adam? Is that true?
That's correct. We reach over 1 million people a month, over 25 million views, and over 6,000 interviews, Kanika. It's crazy, but I didn't plan all that, but those are some numbers. Don't make me embarrassed.
So, what happened? Like, how did you get into all of this? Like, take us to that first time
Yeah.
where you thought, that, okay, I'm going to do something different. We
Mm,
were chatting earlier and you mentioned you had a finance background. There
yeah.
was a set way of doing things and you were doing well.
Mhm.
What happened? Why did you pivot?
Yeah. Well, first, Kanika, I like for everybody listening, I would like to say that I did not plan on all of that, and this was not like part of the plan. If you were to tell me I was going to be a podcaster, being in the podcasting space, I didn't know what podcasting was when I don't even know if they were around when I got out of college. So I don't even know. But and I started, I'll just be blunt, I started as the world's worst podcaster. And I say that sometimes and people are like, "Oh, is he trying to be humble? Is he trying to be?" No, Kanika, let me tell you, I was so bad in the beginning. I didn't even use my real name because I was deathly afraid somebody would find out that I had a show. I
No,
didn't
no,
even,
I remember that. I relate to that. Like, I remember doing my first episodes and then not publishing them because
wow.
there's a visibility fear that we grow through.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there was a time where I was like, well, I don't want to show my face.
Hold on. Oh, wait, I, I didn't do a video interview until after 1,500 interviews.
Wow.
Because I was like, no, camera, this, you would turn on a camera and I forget my name. I'd be like, hello, what's happening? So I like it's easy sometimes to look at somebody, maybe if somebody thinks I'm decent, I don't know, maybe people are still like, no, I can see it, he's still bad. I don't know, but it's easy to look at somebody once they maybe have accomplished a certain thing and think that it was maybe not easy, but they were natural or they were gifted or they had a thing. That wasn't me. So I just like to set the table or set the stage by saying, yeah, if you're watching this and you have, an idea for a show or you're thinking about going in that direction, but you're like, don't worry, you can't. If you can do a Zoom call like this, then you're better than me day one. So it's okay.
All right, but going back to your story. Yeah, so what happened?
So
What
I
inspired
was
you?
my this story is with a series of people asking me to do things that I don't want to do and me saying no and then eventually giving in. So when it comes to my first book, so I wrote my first book when I launched a firm. I was in finance almost 14 years. I launched my first book, and it's because I didn't want to launch that book, but my mentor at the time, he says, and I know you're a coach, Kanika, my coach, my mentor, he says, Adam, you need a book. And I'm like, I don't want to write a book. Like books are for broke people. I didn't understand marketing, branding. I didn't understand story. Remember, I was very left brain. I was in that business for
How
almost
old were you
14
then?
years.
What was really happening?
Well, I started when I was 16 in finance, to be clear. So when I was
Mhm.
in high school, I went to school maybe like 2 hours a day in my third and fourth year, and then I'd go to the firm. So even though my age was young, I'd spent the majority of my time with people anywhere between the age of 60 and 90, being in that
Mhm.
business, working with people with money. So my logic, my ideology was kind of different, we'll say. So I didn't
Mhm.
understand any of that. I lived in a world of numbers. So story
Mhm.
meant nothing to me, to be honest. And so I wrote my first book begrudgingly. I didn't want to do it. I'm like, these broke people do this. I don't want a $5 product. Who cares? And I did it, and that was the first like change in my life. I noticed. I started getting emails. I started getting people saying how much the book was helping them, and then I found in my personal life, I was on tours as far away as China doing speaking gigs and arrangements, and I'm getting paid to do this. And I'm like, what? This is crazy. Like I was used to being in finance, and in finance, for those of you that have ever been in that business, you pay to speak. Why? Because you put together an event, you bring a couple of investors, and you put them in and you feed them, and you put them in the crowd, and your idea is to present in front of them to make them investors, right? With your company. So when I brought out my first book, it all changed. And then the weirdest thing ever happened, Kanika, is people started asking me to help them publish books. And I'm like, are you crazy? I'm a financial advisor. I manage money. You want me to like, this is insane. Why would you come to me for a publisher? You know what I do. But people saw what I did and they were like, well, you had some success with it and we like you. We want to work with you. So I said no. I said no. I kept saying no. And then begrudgingly, again, a series of me doing things after, people ask me enough. I put together this series and it's an anthology series. And it was kind of patterned after, I don't know if you remember, do you remember the old like Chicken Soup for the Soul by any chance?
Oh, yeah. Love
Yeah.
that series.
So I created a version of that, not that brand, of course, but a version of that, but that was for entrepreneurs. And it was simple. A bunch of people that asked me if I would help them. I was like, look, we'll all put together a couple $1,000s, whatever. We'll spend it on the marketing, everything else. I'll manage the project. Fast forward, we've published over 400 people now in that series and been bestsellers many, many times. And that grew over the last, 9 years. I think we published the first one of those. And then you work the podcast into there again, something else I didn't
Yeah.
want to do. And
I Now I am loving your story because it is a story of transition. It is also a story of going
Mhm.
where your people were asking you to. And often that is uncomfortable. Like I see that a lot with
Yeah,
my clients as well, because all of my clients are coaches who are wanting to be more successful in their businesses. And they'll
yeah.
say, oh, my client's asking me for this, and I don't know if I am ready for it. I'm like, if they're asking you, you're ready because there's something in you that is ready. Like you shape up and you
It's
prepare
hard to
for that.
take that advice, though. I'll say from my perspective, it's hard. So I'm sure your clients are like, I know, Kanika, but it hurts. I know it
Yeah.
does hurt. I'm like, I'm a
Well,
publisher? What?
growth is always going to be outside your comfort zone. If it was going to be comfortable, you'd be in the same spot. Yeah. But what
Yeah.
I love about your story is that you have had a coach since very early on. So, what
Oh, yeah.
inspired you and what were you looking for in your coach? Because
Mm,
I go by the same ethos. I feel that
yeah,
all my growth happens with the coach, and I'm
totally.
always looking at the next coach. Like, this is where I want to go next.
Mm,
So, if I don't have
yeah.
the right person, I'm always looking for the best coach who can help me because
Yeah.
they make me accelerate a whole lot faster than I would on my own.
Yeah. I think I got kind of lucky early on. Like, I mean, from a really young age. I didn't even know it was coaching. So I played some sports when I was really young, like baseball, things like that. So I understood the concept of a coach. But when I got into my teenage years and I could drive and I'm getting more aware of the world and what's going on, I had a penchant, or I was always interested in business. Like, how can I make money? How can I do things? Like, what I was that kind of kid. So I was always creating or doing something. So when I got that first internship and when I started working at Raymond James in finance and I started that part of my career, the reason was because I would ask my parents about money and things like that. And really, where I got really fortunate is my dad was a small business owner, but he told me, he's like, look, just because I do this doesn't mean I really know anything about business. I know about this. If you want to know about money, I'm a small business owner. I'm not who you want to talk to about that. Like you have to find like, somebody to work with or work in money or something else. So that's kind of
Great
where I
advice. Yeah.
understood. And I was young, so my parents knew what they didn't know, but they didn't fake it.
Mhm.
Like they told me they didn't know
Loved it.
and that
And
I had
so,
to.
yeah, and then talk me through your first coach. Like, how did you find him? What happened? What was your
My first coach was
inspiration?
when I was 16. I still remember his name, Leonard, and his name was Leonard, and he was one of the older financial advisors at that firm. And he would come and he'd school me. He'd school me. He would give me lessons. He talked to me about the market. He talked to me about the next steps, and then I had a series. Then my next coach, Gary, he was a business owner, and like throughout my life, I've always had these coaches, and even for different areas of my life. Not always money, not always business, right? Sometimes it'd be fitness, sometimes it'd be personal side of things, sometimes it'd be. So I'm a huge fan of coaches and coaching because I don't want to figure all this stuff out. I still have coaches. Like I'm busy. I don't want to know what's working or this or that. I got a company. I got interviews to do. I got lots of moving parts, employees. I got other stuff. When I bring a coach on, I want them to, they're out there. I like to say it this way. They're out there taking the arrows in the back, for lack of better words. They're out there doing the work daily so that I can plug in when I need that work. And that brings me to another level. So it's always worked for me. And I can't see ever not wanting to, because every level I get to, guess what? There's another coach, another level up that I want to learn from.
Exactly. Exactly. Love that. So now talk to us about your podcast. And this is the time now when you don't want to do your podcast and you're being told to
Yeah.
do podcasts. What happened there?
So I'm like, this is the conversation. So there's one other co-founder here. His name is Chirag Sagar. We've been together from the beginning. I like to say we met each other. It was a business at first sight. We met each other on LinkedIn. I swiped right. I don't know, but but yeah, and we've been together
You
ever
swiped
since.
right on LinkedIn. Okay.
Exactly.
I don't know if LinkedIn agrees to that, but
We
okay.
really did. We met on LinkedIn. It's a true story. Online business, meeting.
Mhm.
So we met on LinkedIn. I actually invited him into the first book, and it wasn't even going to be a business. And he's like, he came from the media background, though. I was in finance, so I didn't. I'm like, this is a business, isn't a business. Are you crazy? And he's like, no, this is a business, and I want in. So we made it into a business based off of really his pushing. And so the book's going, all of that, speeding back to the podcast. So at some point, he's like, Adam, we need to do a podcast. And I'm like, I don't even know what a podcast is, but I don't want to do it. He's like, well, one of us has to do it. And I'm like, why? He's like, because we'll sell more books. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, then you do it. He said, well, if I do it, then I'm not going to have as much time for business development and partnerships. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So I didn't even
Okay.
know this is the first interview. I'm not even joking. I was like, well, you're the first interview because I don't even know. I've never interviewed anybody in my life. I don't even know what that looks like. So, he was the first interview. And I think, honestly, you could call this is for people out there that complicate this thought process of interviews and or having to have high production or all these other things. My message, and by the way, the reason why I come on shows now and I do guesting like this, it's not actually to promote the things that I'm doing. It's because I want other people to start their own shows and to do and get their message out there. So that's why I share the story, by the way. But so I'm talking to him and I'm like, all right, but my first 300 episodes, first off, launching the podcast probably took me 15 minutes. I didn't even know what it was. And I remember very distinctly, we had a book and that we'd already had out. And this is how I created my podcast cover. I did a screen grab of a square of the logo on the top. Very classy, I know. Thank you. So when I say, so because my face was on, I'm like, there you go. That's a podcast cover. So it literally took me 15 minutes to launch my first one. And you couldn't even, I don't even know if we could call it a podcast. We could call it phone recordings because yes, I did it over my phone that were unedited. So it could have been called recorded phone conversations of Adam that were uploaded for people to
When did
listen
you
to.
start?
9 years ago. So this wasn't acceptable back then either. Just saying, like you weren't supposed to do
Well,
zero
but still,
editing.
I think there was still maybe Canva and all of that polishing was coming out a little bit later. Like, yes, 9 years ago, yes,
It
social
was
media
out. We
platforms
had
were
it.
there.
We had it. It was
But
out. There was no excuse.
well, but I always feel that sometimes it's good to be naive.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's good to just try, just jump in and go. Because otherwise, we look at all these things and we just get so scared and we never take the first step. So now
I
you're
love
out
that.
here and you're going in and
I
you
think
are.
if I have to, I always say this, I'm like, probably the reason why we gained an audience, by the way, 300 plus episodes, unedited, no script, no, I didn't even know you're supposed to do an intro for a while. I'm like, oh, you gotta do an intro? I never listened to one. I was just recording it and just uploading it. And okay, I did my podcast today. And, and we grew an audience from that. And I think, I can't prove this, but maybe the initial listeners were just like, man, this guy's a train wreck. We don't know where this is going. But I never listened to anything like this before, that's for sure.
I think there is love with the
Yeah.
unedited version. There is, as much as we
Yeah.
all want to be perfect, we also like the imperfection that
Mhm.
makes us all relatable. So I think that's the
Yeah.
essence that you're talking about. But what do you think, like really, really digging deep inside?
Mhm.
What was the secret sauce earlier? What were you doing
Yeah.
right in the beginning?
Connection. It's connection. It's not. So when it comes to the people that are, yeah, I mean, there's going to be a percent. You're never, first off, you're never going to make everybody like happy, period. So some people, if you're into the tech side or like you want to get the audio perfect or you want to get everything else, I would argue that the difference, and this comes a little bit further ahead in the story, and I'll just say it briefly, just to give some context because the other part, most people don't understand what they're actually doing, and I'll be very specific in that. So when I was in finance, the way I learned, I know everybody learns differently, but you have to take all these exams. I had my Series 7, my CFP, my Series 6, my insurance licenses. I calculated once that, I'd been studied on, I've studied and been quizzed on and or taken exams on at least 10,000 plus pages of content to get all the licenses to do what I was doing. So when I got into this part and I realized, oh, this is going to be like my full-time job, I'm like, well, I took it with the same seriousness. So what did I do? I went back to the beginning of entertainment. I'm talking vaudeville. I studied all the greats, the Johnny Carsons, the David Lettermans, the Larry Kings, the Jay Leno's. I studied all of the people, and to find those common themes and common traits and what makes a great interview. And one of the things that authenticity was a big one, off the chart. Like everybody kind of did it for themselves. It was a big theme, as they were trying to create something great, but also something they wanted to watch. So as I started educating myself on all of this, really, I knew that I wasn't a natural comedian. Like I was funny, whatever. Wasn't a natural comedian. I definitely wasn't a natural intellect. I'm not exactly dumb, but I'm not a natural I was in a natural like intellect where I was gonna, like, you have a growth show in business. I wasn't gonna be that specific. I already knew that. But I knew that like what I had for sure was, and I've had since I was a kid, is I wore my heart on my sleeve. Like I'm authentic. Like that I know I'm off the chart. Like that's gonna come through the moment I open my mouth. Sometimes that gets me in trouble. It doesn't always work for me, but in my life and maybe personal life, but for an audience, like for an audience to know that the person they're listening to is really telling them what they think and what they feel. The way I figured was that you're not going to get everybody, but the people that like you, they'll tune in. You just keep doing it. And over the years, I've done it long enough with enough individuals and at a right caliber to where we've gained an audience. But that doesn't happen overnight. So I also had the correct perspective on what that looks like in terms of a journey. And the reason is because of all the studying I did. So if you listen to all the people that I just named, we can throw Oprah in there, we could throw all of the greats. They got 30 plus year careers in entertainment. So if I'm
Yes.
a podcaster, if I'm a host, they're good. There you
Okay.
go.
So you were talking about your connections. You were talking how you were really connecting and picking people
Yeah.
that you liked.
Yeah.
How was that going for you? How did you decide these are people you were interviewing? Was there any
hmm
process there? I know you were being natural. Was there something specific that you were doing with your podcast?
Yes. So first off, it didn't start that way. So I was just like every new podcast host or any creator, I was in my head. I got to a certain point to where, once I did those first 300 plus episodes, I'm like, okay, the show's growing, and I did all this research, all this, all of this, we'll say groundwork. And then I'm started getting in my head about it. I'm like, am I doing this right? Is this like, you start getting those doubts. So then, speaking of coaches, I went to somebody he's old school. His name's Bill Taub, and he's written some books on entertainment, some other things like that, how to write pilots. And he was a writer, old school Hollywood. He's written for like NYPD Blue and all those kind of like big shows back in the day. And I go to Bill and I'm like, hey Bill, so I'm talking about all these different things, and he's like, all right, Adam, let me stop you. And he's like, do you think that you're gonna be better in, the next 10 interviews you do? And I'm like, yeah. He said, what about the next 100? I'm like, yeah. Then he says, well, in the past, like, are you better now than when you first started, when you were at like interview like 100? I'm like, yeah. He's like, what about when you did your first interview? Are you better now? He said, I'm like, yeah. He says, well, this is the thing. Like present day Adam doesn't have the right to judge the potential and progress of future Adam, and because you don't know how good you can get. So what you have to do is do the work and get better and just try to get better in every single one and just know that you're not gonna hit out of the park every time. It's impossible. He says it doesn't matter who you are, any entertainment history, they never hit it out of the park. The A-list celebrity actor that you know, the best name, they've all made movies that sucked. Everybody's had a failure in this. So if you understand that, then everything changes. The pressure's off.
And
So
I just
that was my
love
first
that.
step. Hmm.
I love that. The way I also talk to my clients is I tell them that we think somehow we start from point A and then we
Yeah.
get to success. And that's wrong. Like the whole,
Mm.
template here is wrong. It doesn't happen that way. You start from point A, you have a series of failures, and
Hmm.
then you get to success. So instead of thinking failure as a stopping point, like, oh my God, I failed, failures are leading you to success. So it's
Yeah.
okay. You're on track.
Hmm.
Yeah, so you took the advice, you kept going. Let me jump in for a quick second because if you are ready to grow your income, then this part really matters. Now, most people think that sales is a strategy problem, but it's not. Sales is a combination of your strategy and energy. And when you shift that, your message lands differently and clients come in more easily. So, if you are ready to see what is blocking your sales right now, book a free energetic sales audit with me at artoflifecenter.com/sales. Let's get your clients rolling in.
And so the next thing was I knew that we had, and this was the part where I was still trying to just find my voice, like what was that thing going to be? And so what we did next was I started doing more. Like I've never been the perfectionist type. I don't have that in me. But I was like, you know what I can do? I can do more. So the next thing I did was I upped the volume. Now, I don't recommend this for anybody else out there, just FYI. And when I say what I'm going to say, just understand that maybe I'm not saying I'm good. I'm not saying I'm still good, by the way, but I did have something that's a little bit different than others in terms of that ability to run the marathon longer. Like if I had to describe myself, I'm a marathon runner. I'm not a sprinter. Like I'm not going to be great for one performance, but I can be like really good for a long time, like long, long time. So I started
But
upping the quantity.
yeah, also, I'm imagining that by that time you would have the resources, you would have somebody doing your podcast, like doing a lot of the other stuff. You're not
Oh
doing
yeah,
all the heavy
once the
lifting.
rock, oh for sure. So then we built infrastructure in the company, of course. There's editors, there's other things like that. And by the way, that's a good point. So the way that we structured the company, once we knew that this part of it was going to take off, is I spend, and then to this day, by the way, I spend 70% of my time in front of the camera and doing interviews, and then I spend the other 30% running the company as CEO and doing strategy and other things like that. So to this day, and we built the infrastructure below that, or the infrastructure across the board that allows us to do that. So the executives in the different profit centers are responsible for their own, P&Ls and things like that. So just to be clear, so yeah, I'm not just out here doing interviews and not taking care of the business because ultimately it is a business. So for everybody, like this is media, it's the media business. It's not the media for fun game.
Hmm. Correct, correct.
Yeah.
And that's a
So I
different thing.
increased the volume to answer your question. So my record is 91 interviews in a week, and I started consistently doing between 60 and 70 interviews a week. So what does that look like? That looks like 5 to 6 days straight a week, 15-hour plus days of interviews straight, with maybe a little lunch in between. Or sometimes if everybody showed for their interview, then maybe I don't get to eat for a while. But I started doing that, and I started doing that for a long time, I mean, years, just to be clear. And that's how you get to a, 6,000, approaching 7,000 interview catalog in such a short amount of time. But going
Yeah.
back to my studies and everything that I'd been able to get my hands on, all the greats, they did 30,000 plus interviews in their career. So I'm still a
Yeah.
baby. I'm a little
So,
infant over here.
so what's your big why? Like, in
Mm.
between, you're saying, hey, and I love that you're painting a very true picture. You're
Yeah.
saying that, well, there were times where you did not get time to eat,
Yep.
and it has been a slog as well. But what's your big why? Why did you do it? Because
Yeah.
here's my question. When I look back of pivoting from my corporate life and picking up
Mhm.
this work, I always say this, that if I had to do a job, I could always
Yeah.
do a job. My business does not have to become my job. And yet, there are days for me as well where it gets harder, where I'm doing long things, but they're things that I love. What was your big why with the podcast? Like, I think there's, first of all, there's a
Yeah.
misnomer there that there's like a work life balance. Well, you love the work, so you just end
I
up
didn't say
doing
one
more.
time during this interview that I love it. When did I say that?
But why were you okay? So were you hating podcasts? Why were you doing so many interviews?
Depends. Every single day, I love it and hate it, and love it and hate it. Every emotion every day. That makes for a very interesting host. Not a good personal life, but interesting host.
Okay, so what are you hating sometimes, and what are you loving, and
Yeah.
why do you do so many?
Yeah. I'll tell you that I don't really I know that the word that people use why. I understand that and that's how we understand it. For me, it's more of as I go through life, I'm given and I believe I'm connected to God, the spirit, everything. And so I receive um layers of understanding as I go through life. Like that's how it feels to me. I've never been a why person, not because I think it's bad. I'm not judging anybody that has a why, but for me, that's been very inconsistent because it just changes. Like things change a lot. Have changed a lot in my life. So I'll give you one example of a current level of understanding that I would have never imagined in a million years, but it changed everything for me. So if you would ask me my why and I made one up like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, would have been completely different. But the new layer of understanding that I've been given in this life was when they had that. I don't know if you know in Florida when they had that Hurricane Milton, they had all that stuff that happened. Before that, there was a series of tornadoes that happened. There was like six tornadoes or something that touched down, or something like that. It was like 10, or I don't remember the exact amount. And during that time, six people passed, and one of them was my mom. And it was one of those things that just unexpected. Like I'm literally talking to her on the phone, just like we're talking to our mom, a random call, and she's telling me about like, oh, there was only supposed to be hurricanes, not tornadoes. So the tornado part wasn't supposed to happen, or they would have left. But she wanted to stay there to take care of the dogs, all these other things. And like literally the next morning, I look at my phone, I have all these missed calls, and I'm like, no way, impossible. How is that even possible? So obviously I went through all of that and what that looks like. I went to the site and it was just one of those things to where like it was a direct hit. The home was just pulled all right off its foundation and thrown across the street. It was just the craziest story ever. And it was a direct hit. Like literally the neighbor was in the driveway in his car, and of course I'm happy nothing happened to him, but he was fine. Like he was fine. And so it was like one of those things where he was just to say it was an act of God is an understatement. Like it was just supposed to happen, right? And so as I go through that and I grieve and I'm working through that, like something really interesting happened. And what it was is that I looked at when I was going through, you do estate stuff, all these other things, and you look at kind of like perspective on what you value. And I realized I look back at it and I brought my mom on the podcast a couple of times. And what I valued most, like at that moment and still to this day, like not money, this, that, everything else, it was like that I have created that with her and that I don't have kids. I'm not married, anything like that. I hope to be one day. I hope to have kids, hope to be married. And if I do have that privilege, then my wife will be able to hear from my mother through her words and feel her heart. My kids, well, her grandkids would be able to hear her words and hear her heart. And my mom, she was a social worker working with at-risk youth for like 40 plus years. So she like was one of those like, those angels on earth. Like she just was. She worked with what she used to call the least of these, the forgotten ones, that yes, they do exist in this country as well, not just abroad. So she worked with people that she lost kids from her school yearly due to the most horrific things you could think of, violence and otherwise. So when I look back at her legacy and I look back at those recordings and things like that, I was kind of like that. I understood. I was given this new level of understanding of what I do and how important it is, and also how. And I've already had this happen. Unfortunately, I this happened a couple months ago. A gentleman by the name of Tim Kentz, who I published his work, and I also he's been on the show a couple times, and we became good friends. He passed. I have another author that passed a while back. His name was Andrew Kawasaki. And when I look at this and I think about somebody's legacy or somebody's like life on earth and what they can give back and like how this all contributes to humanity to uplift us all, those experiences, like my level of understanding of the importance of what I do. And now in retrospect, not during that time, but in retrospect, the quantity does matter. The more people that I can interview, wonderful, that's amazing. But that's also what led to my book. So I told you that I wrote a book, and the book is not to sell books. I give it away. I give it away. It's not to sell books, it's to inspire others to go out and to tell their story and to start podcasting and to share their message. And that's the goal because I can only do so many interviews myself. I'm tapped out at 91. I was like, if I really do the math, maybe I could do 100, but like that's it. But to me, it's far more interesting to, hopefully do my part in inspiring and getting 100 podcasters to go do interviews or 1,000 or 1,000,000. Like that's interesting because that's
Yeah.
also a luxury. My mom, when in her earlier years, she was a bit of an activist. She's always been working in the communities. And what I know for a fact is that we've not, this is the first time in history that we all have the ability to tell and be part of telling our own stories. Because depending on where you were and how you were born and everything else in history, whether you didn't have money, you didn't have intellect, I mean, you go far back enough, maybe you had the stick and you were around the campfire and it was your turn to talk. But the bottom line is, we've never been able to all collectively, everyone, take part in writing our own stories and sharing and contributing what we have to give so that we uplift humanity together and the consciousness together. Because in the past, it's been entire histories of civilizations have been wiped away, either
Yeah.
intentionally or just lost through time. That
Yeah.
brain trust, all those experiences, like we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's my
Thanks.
current level of understanding in my place and in doing this business and in life.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Adam. And thanks for being really vulnerable. Good that you had your mom on the show.
Mm,
That's amazing. I haven't
yeah.
interviewed my parents, but that gives
Oh,
me
you
an
better do
idea.
it. No, now that's my other hidden one. Whenever I've told this story, you have to do it. You won't regret
Yeah.
it.
I think, yeah, because there's a lot that I talk about me, but it would
Yeah.
be also fun to see my kids talk about it, my parents talk about it,
Yeah.
because that's a different take. And we're doing important work. I think you touched on the importance of creating that ripple effect. That's pretty
Yeah.
much why I work with coaches as well, because there'll be other coaches who'll go out and who'll create that ripple effect, who'll inspire, who'll transform more lives.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing with the podcast. So I love that. I
Yeah.
appreciate your understanding in terms of, talking about the why and going, hey, I don't really know
Mm,
that big why. And that's
yeah.
true. Like the why changes. First, you're
Yeah.
just doing it for you. You're trying it for yourself. You don't know how big or what it is going to be.
I
But
don't know. I'm not
yeah,
that sharp on that one.
yeah. But in but in chasing in chasing your greatness and
Yeah.
becoming better at something, you actually make the greatness. So talk to us
Mm,
about your book, and you're giving it away for
yeah.
free. Why?
Yeah. 1 billion
Sorry, I'm a why
podcasts.
person.
I'm in. No, I'm not into. I didn't say I don't like the why. I just said that I could never answer the question. So because I don't, it's just not in me. But to answer your question on the book, 1 billion podcasts. So after I lost my mom and after I've been given this new level of understanding, what I did was I actually, after, I went and took care of all the arrangements, things like that, there were just all of these miracles that started happening. It was insane. Like I'm not going to get into all of them here. I recorded my first monologue. It's on my YouTube video. It's on my YouTube channel. And it ended up being like after all these miracles started happening, I basically documented them just on my notes on my phone because I just couldn't believe it. They were so rapid fire. And so then I went and just kind of read it off and just started documenting them. And I had, an hour and a half long monologue, which I've never done a monologue in my life, by the way. That's my first monologue ever. And so as I'm reflecting on that, I'm like kind of going through these miracles. And at a certain point, my heart just kind of changed. And I was like, I was stuck on this question. And it was, what if my mom had a podcast? What would it have been about? And I thought about it because as much as I value those recordings I have with her, I thought about it and I'm like she would have spoken about like forgiveness. She would have spoken about acceptance. She would have spoke about community. She would have told, victims of violence, whatever type, that it wasn't their fault and it's okay. She would have preached forgiveness. And when I think about all that was lost, like, obviously, I can't go back in time and do that, but what I can do is I can share the story. I can share how other people can get started. I can give my 9 years of knowledge and put it in a really short, concise book so that people could digest it. I could put it on YouTube for free. The audiobook version is absolutely free on YouTube. I can give away the digital copy. I'm actually creating a curriculum around it to give away and to put into schools, and I can help take and use my mother's story, and hopefully that will inspire others. And on my end, if my part of the inspiration is this, if I had to encapsulate it, if someone as bad as I started could make a living and travel the world and do all the things that I've been able to do through podcasting, you can too. Like, I think that was my gift that God gave me. He's like, let's make him real bad and then let him get better by him hitting his head against the wall so that others can be like, if that guy can do it, I can do it.
Yeah,
But that's
practice
so
makes
that's the
perfect.
book. That's the book. I think collectively we can change the world through that information.
Yeah, absolutely. And practice makes perfect. I think thanks so much for sharing just again and again how it's just about
Mm,
trying and reiterating. There's
yeah.
so much improvement that happens with every reiteration.
Mm,
I always think that we should do what we want to do, what we are inspired to do, what we are asked to do, but we should keep
mm,
doing that, not add more, but we should do that first and we should actually get better at doing ourselves.
mm.
And then when you have capacity, when you feel like, okay, this is good, then you add more to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Is there any last words of advice or things that you feel we haven't talked about that you would like to share with the listeners?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I like to say is that, especially for the people that are out there that are maybe busy, and they say they're busy, especially the people that are already successful. In that book, I talk about and I give very practical things, and there's a big, big monetary reason for actually starting a podcast right now, and I'll give it really briefly. I know we're heading towards the end, but it's called 1 billion Podcast for a reason. When people were, I come on shows like this and people would always ask me about starting and growing the show, and they'd always tell me, isn't it saturated? Isn't there so many podcasts? And when people would tell me that, I just realized I'm a data guy. I'm like, this person that asked this question doesn't even understand how silly this question is, but they've heard it so many times from people that don't know what they're talking about that we've collectively accepted misinformation. So here's the real information, and anybody can look this up, fact check it, whatever. There's only about 4 million podcasts. There's over 150 million YouTube channels. Podcasting hasn't even begun. We're like in month 6 of YouTube. In the book, I give you some very specific reasons, such as dynamic advertising and the introduction of dynamic advertising and a bunch of other things. So it's not a fluffy, just motivational side of things, which I'm not against. I love a great motivational book, but that's not what it is. I'm giving you data, I'm giving you stats, and I'm making a business case for why everybody should be starting a podcast right now. And then I intertwine along that because it's a media gold rush, period. And right now, if you read that and if you understand what's going on, then you'll realize that now is the time to start one. And if you do, you may be passing down that show and generational wealth to your children over time. And I lay that out very clearly in the book. So that's where I like to leave it. And if anybody wants to connect, ask Adam Torres on Instagram, and you can download the book, all the other good stuff for free. And appreciate you having me on.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Adam, for being on the show. And thanks for all the insights that you've shared. And I agree with you. It's about legacy, it's about creating stories, it's about leaving stuff for your kids. Because, yes,
Mm,
you can leave things for them, but there's so many stories you can't tell them. And there's so many stories that they'll only understand
yeah.
when they are at that age and time. And
Hmm.
maybe you won't be around to share it. Maybe you won't be around to share it with your grandkids or grandkids
Yeah.
of grandkids, but they'll have a legacy. And the world will have a legacy with all those stories. So thank you
Mm.
so much for creating Mission Matters. We wish you the best of luck with your book. And for everybody, please go ahead and check out Adam Torres. He's absolutely amazing. So much fun to chat with. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you to all the listeners. I hope you go out there and you do what inspires you and you do it better and better over and over again. Lots of love. I'll see
Mm.
you next time.